Okay, we'll get started today. You can see, I thought we'd have more people here. I think I've got to not make it so you can do this virtually for in-class students because I had a number of students ask, and some of them just did this, submit a recording of their projects today. So next time we'll figure that out. Yeah, because I know it's sometimes intimidating to come and have to do that in person there, but I also think it's an important skill to practice for that. So I think next project will require in person, if you're an in-person student, that you do this in person here. But what are we going to do today? So we are going to share our projects a little bit today for the first half of class, and then we're going to start Flutter for the second half of class and get Flutter going here. Um, so for the first part of class, I think we'll just kind of, maybe if you can bring your project up and if it's working, if not, what some code of it. And I think what we'll want to do is pick some section of code that you want to share with other people for that. So find your app, be ready to show that off, and then some section of code you want to show other people for that. And we will try to maybe pair you up here, and then you can share code with the other person and then do vice versa. I'll wander around and try to catch some of the sharing as we go too for that. So we'll do that for the first part, and then we will do the we'll start Flutter for the second part of class. So let's see if we can spend about half an hour doing. I was thinking maybe about 15 minutes per person just to show the app and walk through some code and that. So we're not in a big hurry for that. Give you a chance to actually walk through that. So I'm going to pause the recording and let you start getting that organized. So, yes.
How are you grading?
On this, yeah, I carefully monitored each of your discussions and how technical. I have a rubric on 5 technical things and how well you explain the code, and I marked you on that.
I'm just asking because you kind of like you happen to come around that code.
Not yes. So your score was very low on this one, just so you know. So with this sort of stuff, my goal is to first get you used to explaining code to appear without a lot of pressure. So basically, if you're here and showing your code, you're getting credit today for that. Okay, so I just noted who's here with the project and they're showing their code and you do it. Now, the next stage, next time we do this, now if you've done it at this level, we'll do it a little more formally when we do the Flutter stuff. Have a little bit more requirements and that sort of stuff. I think when we do the last one, I might actually have you do an actual presentation up here. We'll see how that goes. So again, we're gonna we have 3 projects and we'll do it. So the third project is much more AI generated, and that's the one where I actually do want you to be able to explain the code the most is when we're doing live coding at that point there. So each one of these will kind of ramp up the requirements for it. But at this point, if you're here or if you recorded a video for online students, we're good there. So okay. Okay, so I just opened up the unit 6. I noticed that I thought I'd opened it up before, but then I maybe accidentally closed it again. But unit 6 should be open now on Flutter setup here. So again, we're starting our 5-week Flutter start here and working on that. Yeah, so Flutter's a really interesting program. Maybe, and I forgot to link this in. Let me just Flutter makes it has a pretty big presence on YouTube. The official Flutter account does. Let me see if I can find this real quick. There are a lot of people who talk about Flutter on YouTube, but the actual Flutter account does a lot on YouTube, and I'll link some of these in. So they have a package of the week, and they have a generally a widget of the week for this. And every once in a while they have a longer video. I'm going to I'm going to link this one in our startup because I think it's a really good intro. I'm going to put it under the Flutter, their first app, maybe. Let's see. And let me just play the first part of it here. This is it's a 20-minute video, and it's only a few months old, and it kind of introduces you to Flutter and Firebase here for us. So.
That you're looking to build and ship amazing mobile split one photos. Well, here's what it is. In this video, we're going to show you why you should be building and shipping your next app for iOS and Android using Flutter and Firebase. I'm John, a developer relations engineer for Flutter, and I'm Seth, product manager for Flutter. First up, we're going to give you a quick intro to both Flutter and Firebase. Then, we'll take a technical look into how Flutter works and how it's different from other multi-platform solutions you have used. Then, we'll dive into some demos that show you how to bring great features to life in your own apps, like this one. We're going to start by doing a quick introduction to what Flutter and Firebase are all about. What drives us and our whole community is our commitment to helping developers like you build beautiful apps for all users. So we built Flutter, the world's most popular multi-platform app SDK. Flutter is a highly productive open source development set with a language, framework, and rendering engine that helps you bring to life high quality production grade apps with of iOS, Android, the web, and more. The Flutter community and adoption of Flutter is growing every day. There are over 50,000 packages in our ecosystem. Over 1 million developers are using Flutter to build over 1 million apps in the Play and App Stores. In fact, 30% of new apps in the App Store are built with Flutter. We're thrilled to see the community bring Flutter everywhere. So, what do our developers, teams, and businesses find so valuable about Flutter? Or, let me rephrase, why should you care about Flutter?
Because your teacher makes you care about Flutter. That's why.
We made Flutter truly multi-platform. It runs your apps on a single code base across iOS, Android, the web, and more. Your users want beautiful experiences, and you want to deliver your business's strong brand consistently across all form factors. We want to help you always say yes to your designs. So we made Flutter's framework flexible and powerful, so you can create anything from UI that looks like the built-in apps on iOS and Android to more branded, creative design that match your company design identity. We're delighted that so many development teams have crafted fully custom, brand-specific design languages, app experiences, Flutter. Your users want delightful animations and smooth interactions to keep them in the flow. So we make Flutter fast and efficient. Flutter is backed by a complete custom multi-platform rendering engine.
So so you can watch this. They also talk about Firebase, Firebase, and how it's using it, and you've already seen part of that. It is interesting. I like when they go into the technical area here. They talk more about kind of their rendering engine and how it works under the hood. We just don't have time to dive a lot into it, but I think this is a nice short video. I mean, well, 22 minutes, but a nice chunk that gets into some depth and then talks about how you do basic Flutter apps with an example here. So I'll let you watch that. I posted that here to the first Flutter app. But first, we've got to get Flutter up and running here. So I'm going to go to the Flutter setup for this and look at that. So we're going to try it here and get it set up. What we wanted to do is have it integrated in Android Studio. So I think the easiest way, make sure I'm recording, yeah, is to just run Android Studio and close your, if you have a project open, close your project so you get back to this point. So get to this point in Android Studio, and then we're going to add the Flutter plugin here. And I think, so we'll have to see, yeah, I already have Flutter installed on my other computer, so, and the SDKs, but I think if we add the plugin, that'll add the SDK. We'll see how this all works today. So I'm back here. I'm going to click on plugins. I'm going to search for Flutter, and I'm going to find the official Flutter plugin, which should be the top one here. It should be by Google for this, and I'm going to install that. And then restart the IDE. And then with the new plugin, there should be besides new project, there'll be a new Flutter project here that we can choose for that. So how do we get to that homepage to close the project? So if you already have a project that's open here, you can just do up here in the file menu, you can go to close project. And if you close the project, it should bring you back here. You can also, if you have a project open, you can also go into settings or file settings plugins to get here. But I find the easiest way is just to get back here to and then do plugins this way. And again, we want to find the Flutter plugin and install that. And then you'll restart the IDE and then do this. Now it went way too fast, and I'm a little worried that it just installed the plugin and not the Flutter SDK for that. So let's see how this is going to work. So now we have this. Let's try to do a new Flutter project here. We're just going to try, give it some name, Flutter 1. And we'll leave the add sample code here. It'll generate that for this, and we'll see how this goes. And we're going to start with oops, I did that wrong. Yeah, okay. So here, I'm going to try that again. So if I do a new Flutter project, I want to flick, get down to Flutter here. And what it wants is the Flutter SDK path here. And that's what we haven't installed yet. I thought this was going to install this, but okay, so let's go and install the Flutter SDK here. So I'm going to go back to my web browser. And let's see if I go here. We did that. Okay, so let's try this. So back here when we're doing install Flutter, go down here, there'll be the visit the Flutter install page. Go click on that. And we're gonna have to do this custom setup here. And we're going to set up ID. Yeah, let's see if yeah. See, I'm really confused because we used to have to install the SDK and it's not it doesn't give me instructions on how to do that. So let me try this again. So we're gonna here we're gonna do the install manually for Windows. We already have Git installed. We want to install and set up Flutter and download the Flutter SDK bundle here. So we're gonna click on that and save that. So again, from here, click on the Flutter install page. So click on the Flutter install page. Then we want to do a custom setup and install manually. Scroll down. We already have the prerequisites. We have Git installed on this machine, on our machines, and we have our IDE. We have Android Studio here. So then we can skip down and we can download the SDK folder for us. And then we're going to, so once that's installed, they suggest you create a folder for the SDK. And so again, we're going to put this in our, in our own folder, so it's not shared, and then you won't need other permissions for that stuff. They suggest putting it in your users, and then making a developer folder. I sometimes just put it in a Flutter folder here for this, and then we are going to extract the project there. So let's see if I'm still downloading it. So I'm going to let that download a little bit while we're working here, and we'll see how that goes. So then once we get the Flutter SDK unzipped in one of our folders, then from Android Studio, when we can do new Flutter project, we can then select the SDK path here. And once you've got it selected once, it'll remember it going forward for this. So, and I'll just give you the option also, and mention VS Code. I've started using VS Code a lot more for projects. And you can do Flutter in VS Code also. So if you are a big fan of VS Code and want to use Flutter with VS Code, you can also do that here. There's a VS Code quick start here to basically add it into VS Code with an extension for that. So you're welcome to do that. But again, since we're already using Android Studio for the first part of this class, I'm going to continue to use Android Studio for this next part of the class too, as we go. I just know some students are used to using VS Code more, and especially with the GitHub interface with that, I find that okay, but not great. So, okay, how are we doing here? So let's talk a little bit about Flutter then while we're waiting for this to go. I'm gonna our first Flutter app, there's a code lab that we can work through with Google to start our first app. So we're going to walk through that. There are videos, and if you're an online student or stuff, you can watch these here. So I'm just going to walk you through some of these basics here.
In this collab, you're going to build this app. This, I call it Namer. It is an app that just provides a bunch of random name combinations or like word combinations names. Like, for example, hold high or hold threat, tough check, or cheap tail. And this app that you're making is going to be responsive like this. It's actually, of course, it's also running on mobile screens. And it runs on the web as well.
Okay, so that's the app we're going to create. Here's this video. Oops, where I missed the. Oh, here, I think that's my start the collab. Yeah, okay, that's the button I missed. So when you're in here, you want to click the start the collab button here, and this will do it. It'll talk about setting up your Flutter environment. It uses Visual Studio Code for that, so we're going to not use that. We're going to use Android Studio. Talks about connecting a device for this. Again, we can use emulated devices, Android Studio, which is also nice for that. It talks about installing the Flutter SDK, which is what we're doing right now for that. And then it talks about creating a project. But again, it's doing this in VS Code. We'll do it in Android Studio instead for this. So, okay, it looks like my download is done. So I'm going to go over there. I'm going to open up the folder. So it is just a big zip file. I want to unzip it someplace here. So I'm just going to go into my documents. And I'm just going to, I think I'm just going to put it in my documents here. And I'm just going to unzip it here. And extract it. I find 7-zip is a faster extractor often, so I often use that, but you can use zip or whatever you're used to using here. So once this is unzipped, it'll be in some folder, and we can add, we'll just point to that folder for our Flutter SDK stuff. Okay, so there's my stuff. So now, so one thing it actually creates a Flutter folder. So I created a Flutter folder, and it created another Flutter folder. So I probably didn't need to create a Flutter folder. I probably could have just extracted there, but that's okay. I'll just leave it like that for now for that. So I've got it installed here. And again, I should see all these folders for Flutter in there. Now, once I have that set up, I'm going to go back to Android Studio. I'm going to do a new Flutter project, make sure I've clicked on Flutter here, and then selected the SDK path. So where did I call? I did this and make sure I get, yeah, so that should be the folder I'm in for that. So in mine, it was docs Flutter, depending on how you have it set up. And then you should be able to create a new project. I like to often just change the package name, the org name here. So now the platforms, it can create all of these platforms for us. Initially, I'm going to just limit this, I think, to just web and Android for this. Because I'm going to have an Android emulator and I can run it in a web browser too. So just to kind of limit the amount of code and work it does, I'm just going to limit it to that. And I'm going to create this project. Hmm. Yeah, the Flutter project name has to be all lowercase because there's some case sensitivity in different environments. So it has to be all lowercase, and I don't think it can have spaces in it either for that. Okay. I'm going to stop, let this go and see how we're doing around the class with getting. Okay, so let's see how we're doing here. So we're running our IDE, our Android Studio here. Oops. And this should look kind of the same. We should have our project over here for us. And then our code, there'll be a README file here possibly for that. But our main file is called main.dart, and it should open that up here. It'll show it'll be running main.dart up here for us. There'll be folders for like Android. So basically what you do is you create a Flutter, a Dart, your code in Dart for Flutter. And then when you build it, it generates custom projects for every kind of platform you want. So I did Android and web. So it'll create its own Android platform with its own Android source code. And again, I think I selected Kotlin. So it'll create this whole, it creates the main activity and all this stuff for the Android. Now, we will not touch this at all. This will be all generated by the Flutter environment. Same with web, same with iOS or whatever. So if I look in web, it's creating an HTML, an index.html file down there. So again, we will not modify the Android or the web files here for us. We will only modify what's under lib, and then that'll be our Dart files. And right now there's this main.dart. So that's the only one you want to be touching. You don't really want to be touching the Android or the web stuff for this. And this is our Flutter project, and we'll try to run this and talk a little bit about what a Flutter project looks like a little bit here for this. So let's just try to run this. It should come up with some nice code here with a lot of comments telling you what it does. So it has some beginning code here. So we'll try. I'm going to plug in my phone and try to run this on my phone. Actually, yeah. I think I might be able to run it just on the web browser too. So up here, I can just choose to run it in Chrome. Let's just run it in Chrome instead here. Because again, I have it set up to be web or Android. So I'm just gonna, this is where it's running it, and this is what it's running, the main.dart file. So let's try that and run that. While that's kind of building, I'm just going to bring up my phone so we can also see it on a phone here eventually. Okay, so it should open up, in my case, Chrome, and run the Flutter app in Chrome here. It will say Flutter supports hot reloading. What that means is that as I change the code here, it should update, it should run it quickly in my web browser on my phone here. So here's my app running. It just counts how many times I push this button. So there's a little plus button and it adds one here every time I do that. So. Okay, so see if you can get Flutter running. Now I can also, if I switch this, I'm gonna to my Pixel and I run it on my Pixel, it should run it the same way. It'll download it onto your phone and run it on there. Now getting this to run on iOS is going to be a little more challenging. Here we already have Android. Oops, yeah. So it's slowly running on my phone. So then we'll start looking at this basic layout of this, what's in this app here. One of the things we find with Flutter, just like Android, is the first time it builds the app, it takes a while. Then it should support hot reloading and stuff. So then updates and stuff like that are much faster. But again, the first time you run it on the web or on Android, it'll take a little bit to run. So I can see it's still building down here. It's not obvious, but again, the blue bar is still blinking and it's still running Gradle. And I could see it's still running this build stuff here, trying to compile it to my phone. So. Let's see what time we have today. Yeah. I'm going to walk through the bare minimum kind of apps here with this first Flutter app. So again, we have this code lab that you can go through. One of the problems is it uses VS Code, but the code it uses is pretty similar. So it talks about this setting up your main.dart and putting some code there. But I'm going to back up a little bit rather than go through that and start with the bare minimum code here for this. And I've got some sample code out there with our app that we're going to look at for this and run some really basic apps through this code, hopefully. Let's just wait and see how we're doing here. This is still, why is this not running on my phone? Okay, I'm just going to leave that. So let's just talk a little bit about how Flutter is going to work here. The main.dart is going to start kind of like old Java with a main method here. And we are generally going to run an app from that. And so after that, we're going to declare a class that is a widget. And it's usually called like my app or something like that. And it's a widget. Now, there are a couple versions of this. There's as far as state goes, that we'll see. So this creates what is called a stateless widget, and it has a build command. And this is what every widget's got to have a method for building it or displaying it on the screen, and it sets up that build command. This then runs again. I'm just going to walk this real quickly because we're going to get rid of a bunch of this initially to simplify it. It runs a home page class here. So this was a stateless widget. Home page is a stateful widget. So this is another class that runs a stateful widget here, and we define the home page as a constructor there, and we set this up. And then there has to be, since this is stateful, we need a state class that extends a certain thing. And this is where we might declare our variables here and our methods, and then a build function. And this is where we actually build our class here. I mean, our actual app for this stuff that does things we want. So this seems kind of complicated to start. So we're going to try to simplify this some a lot to start. So I'm going to go to this, my first app page, and I'm going to click on this sample first Flutter app code here and look at that. And we're going to grab this my app one example. So I'm going to keep my main here, but delete everything else outside of main. And just paste in this my app one here. And I'm going to, in my main, I'm going to run this my app one here only. So this is like the smallest kind of app that we can basically set up here for this. And then I'm going to try to rerun this here. I think, so rather than hitting the run button, I'm going to hit the hot reload button. That should reload this app here. Let me see where my... Hit stop. Well, I'm going to stop it on my Pixel and just run it on my Chrome here and hit reload. So the simplest app is going to be a class that's a stateless widget here. Oops, it's running. I ran it on my phone again, so let's pop up my phone so you can see. So all it's doing is saying hello Flutter here. So what is that here? So we have our main, then we're just saying run app with the name of our app. Our app is defined as a class that extends a stateless widget. Stateless widgets are good for just, they don't take a lot of user input or stuff like that. So initially we can just do that for it. We have to call the superclass. We're extending class here, so we have to call the constructor for the superclass here. And again, this is just always, we always do that. We always override the build method here, and we're given a context. So like this code here is like always the same. I guess we might change the name of the app here, but otherwise we're always doing this. And inside our build is where we're doing our actual coding for things. And inside build, we have to return a widget. And everything's a widget in Flutter So there's a text widget here that we're returning, and then we're surrounding that by a center widget for this stuff. So the text widget is just showing some text here. So this is where the text widget starts and ends. So we say text parenthesis, the text we're going to display. And then there's a bunch of formatting options here that we can say. So set this text direction and stuff like that for us. So that's our text widget. We want to center that in the screen, so we're putting it inside a center widget here. So the center widget, it has center, and then it has what is called a child. So a lot of widgets will have either an attribute or that's either a child where it wants one thing, or children where it wants multiple things, comma separated list of things here. So the center widget wants a single child widget here. So we say center parenthesis child colon, and then we stick in whatever widget we want for that. And then here's the end of the center widget. Now, it gets kind of confusing when you put a comma and when you put a semicolon. So this is the return statement, return constant center. So at the end of a return statement, you'd have a semicolon. So that's why there's a semicolon here. Within widgets, we generally, if we are listing widgets or stuff or at parameters, basically, we comma separate the parameters here. So the first thing is the text widget, comma, and then there are no other, we're not listing any other parameters. So it is kind of confusing initially where the commas and where the semicolons are. But if we run this again here, and we run this in the web browser, I can say, let me stop this. Okay, I'm going to switch this back to web with Chrome and run it on web. So then we're going to try to go through and look at, so this is the bare minimum hello world one. We're going to try to introduce some structure to our app with columns and containers and stuff as the next thing, where that's, and then 3, 4. So we're going to try to build these apps. And so what there are here, this is the My App 1 here is the simplest one. My App 2 here should be a little more complicated version of it. And then 3 there. So we'll kind of look at those as we go. So let's see, how am I doing here as far as here? I ran this app. Okay, so this is the simplest version. It just says hello world. So let's try a little more complicated one. We're going to try to use a scaffold and a framework called Material. Material is what Android uses to, or Google uses for a lot of their layouts. Like there's a Material library for React. It's a common kind of theme or styling that Android has, that Google has. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to find this My App 2. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to put it above My App 1. I'll just keep. So here's My App 2, and I'm going to then call My App 2 instead of My App 1. So again, My App 2 calls the super constructor, overrides the build method. So again, all that is kind of boilerplate. We're returning a widget here. So this is a more common structure. I have a material app here with the title. I have a scaffold there, and the scaffold is a general framework for a widget. It's going to have an app bar at the top there, a body area. So again, I say scaffold parenthesis, I define what's the app bar widget, and then what's in the body of the app here. So my whole what I had before was the center and the text there. I'm putting that under the body here. And then at the app bar, there's a special app bar widget where I can put some information at the top. So now if I have that, there's my page. If I hit hot reload, it should reload that page for me. There. So now, again, I have my app bar at the top here, a little bar. I have hello Flutter centered down here for that. Okay, so I'll pause, see how we're doing. See if you can try out some of these different apps and see how they look. So let's talk a little bit about these widgets here. So I'm just going to look at the layout of a widget here. Like this is a text widget. We are actually often going to break these up over multiple lines, but initially it almost makes sense if you look at it as one line here. So this is what the widget is. It is just calling a method with a couple parameters here. So I'm calling the text widget. And again, we will define our own widgets and we'll just list the parameters here for this. They will have some required parameters. So the text widget has a required text, a string parameter for what it displays. So with required parameters, I don't have to specify that. Or I have to specify it, but I don't have to specify what it's called or whatever. I just list it there. And then again, I say comma. And then now there's a whole bunch of optional parameters here. And one of them is the style parameter here. So with optional parameters, we use name parameters. We say the name of the parameter and then colon and then the parameter itself here. So here I'm saying style colon, and then it expects a text style widget. So I'm creating another widget here, a text style widget there. And then inside that, you can see it doesn't have any required parameters, have all optional parameters. So optional parameters are always the name of the parameter, colon, and then the value. So the different font size or font styles. And again, if I hit over here, it should show me, but I have font size here and specify comma, color, colon, and then I can grab a color for this there. So again, when we're calling a widget, it is basically just a method call there. The only thing that's weird is that we use name parameters for the optional parameters. So have you seen name parameters before in places, again, where it's just not like Java generally has ordered parameters, first parameter, we're teaching this in Java 1. The first parameter's argument is copied to the first parameter. The second argument is copied to the second parameter if you have multiple ones. And then the order matters here. But in a lot of languages now, you can have these name parameters. I think Python has named optional parameters too, doesn't it? I don't remember, doesn't it? I don't know. I work in so many languages, I get confused sometimes. So. But that's but with Dart here, that's what we're working with, is these named optional parameters for these. And again, so rather than doing it this way, all in one line, we often spread it out in multiple lines like this for this. And again, the center widget's the same thing. We start, it has a optional parameter called child, and it wants a widget. So we're putting a text widget inside that stuff. Similar app bar here. So again, scaffold, you can see scaffold parenthesis. It has a couple optional parameters. So again, we're labeled, one's an app bar parameter and one's a body parameter. So those are the two parameters here. The body expects another widget. So we have a widget inside of that. The app bar expects an app bar widget. So we have an app bar. You can actually put other widgets up here, but generally they have a widget just for that app bar there. So this is the app bar widget, and the app bar widget has a couple optional parameters, the title and the background colors here. Now, there are hundreds of widgets here. Let's see if at some point we'll have a list of common widgets. I don't have that yet. Next week, I think we'll start, I'll start providing you a list of common widgets that are out there. So there's a bunch of, widgets, text input, there's a text field, there's buttons, there's, layouts, there's scaffoldings, there's columns, there's rows, there's formatting, there's centering and size boxes and containers and padding and stuff like that. There's lots of these widgets that we'll learn. There'll probably be 20 or so widgets that you'll get used to using, I would guess, in this. There's probably 50 common widgets out there. If you go, and one thing I will show you at some point is if we go back to YouTube and Flutter, oops, I didn't want to click on that. I wanted the Flutter user. So there will be, Flutter has their widget of the week. I'm still doing that wrong. So, yeah. So they have a whole playlist of widgets of the week, and they have 1 to 2 minute videos about all these different widgets out there, and a short introduction to each one for this. And so sometimes this is kind of fun, a good way to introduce or look at some of these widgets for this. For this. So I'm going to try to see if there's a simple one we can look at. Here, segmented button.
Of 2 to 5 values that you want users to pick from. A great way to present users their options is with Material 3's new segment button. Initialize the segment button, and if you want multi-select, set it using the multi-selection enabled flag. Now, give it a list of button segments. Each button segment should have a value with a label, or an icon, or both. Button segments are selectable by default, but you can disable it by setting the enable flag to false. Configure a variable to store the selected value and an on-selection change callback. In the callback.
Okay, so again, they walk you through, there's all these different widgets like this to do lots of cool stuff for that. And again, there's little videos with a lot of them. There are hundreds of widgets. So we'll be looking at some of those. But let's go back here and do a little bit more. So again, we're going to add a couple more widgets to this list here. So I'm going back in here. So we added some structure here. Let's do some more layout. Often we'll do a column to do things. reminds me, like in App Inventor, we're just, where you drag and drop, there's a horizontal layout or a column or vertical layout, this sort of stuff here. We can bring in a column or a row and lay things out here. So that's the next thing we're going to do is do this. So I'm going to grab this, my app 3, and look at that one. So I'm just going to add that in here and call my app 3 instead of my app 2 for this. Where's my page? See if seems like hot reload. I also have to reload the web page too. So here's my new vertical layout with the column for this. So again, we see our boilerplate code at the beginning where we're doing things, and now we're returning a material app, which is very common here. And then we're defining a title and a theme for this color theme. So you can see now we're kind of in a color theme. We have a scaffold here. And inside the scaffold, we have our app bar, which is up at the top. And we have our body. And in our body now we have a column. So this body is a column of things. So what do we have in our column? So again, we're setting some of the attributes in the column. And now there's a children. So rather than a child and just listing one widget, now there'll be a children, and I'll provide a list of widgets here. So here's our children. It'll be a list of widgets. It starts with a square bracket, and then it has a comma separated list of different widgets here. So I'm displaying an icon. So there's an icon widget, and there's different icons that we can have. I can specify the size and the color here. There's a text widget. We've seen these text widgets before there. And then there's a container widget down here that's a certain size there. And inside the container widget is a text widget for this. And again, you should be able to change some of these things. So try to experiment, like if you change the height of the text widget to like 250 maybe, and hit reload here, it should update it for that size. Same here, if I change the icon size, make it smaller, I should be able to change that and hit reload, and it'll make it smaller, make it bigger if I want. Hit hot reload, and I'll reload it relatively quickly. Change the color. If I hit colors dot, I can pick one of the colors here. They'll show sample colors here. And reload that. So far we've got the material app widget, which is kind of our general framework or kind of our theme thing. We have our scaffold widget there, and inside that is an app bar. And then for the body, we'll have different things. Right now we're using a column here. Now, see if you can modify this to have like multiple containers there. See if you can create more than one container for this. So again, this should be a series of widgets here. I'm going to make them each different color. Maybe I'll just make a different shade of teal. For this, and let's see if I can hot reload this. Now, sometimes if things don't fit on your screen, you'll get this construction zone yellow black striped line, and what that's showing is that it can't fit everything on the screen, and you don't have scrolling. You don't have something that scrolls or anything like that. It's trying to fit it on the screen. And so anytime you see that on the right or left or whatever, it means that things got too big here, and you don't have scrolling enabled. So again, what I don't have in my column, I don't have a scrollable container or anything like that. So maybe I'll just change the size of some of these containers so they're smaller. There. And then they'll show up here. You can also, I think I can drop out. I don't think I have to have a text in a container. So I think I can actually just have just the blocks there. So I can just have these blocks if I want and not have text inside of them. Let's see. So try to play now. You want everything within the children of the column. So there should be children. There should be a square bracket. You could find the matching square bracket down here. Android Studio should put in comments by default here to tell you what's ending. So again, this is the end of my list of widgets. This is my end of my container. So these comments are in here. They're just to help you remember where you're at with this, where that this is matching up with this or this. Don't get put off by the color boxes here that pop up possibly, because all those are is previews. Whenever you declare color in your code, it's showing that color here. So this isn't a breakpoint or anything. That's just a color preview for that. Now, eventually our Dart files will get long. And so again, you can imagine what we're going to do is we're going to take like one of these widgets, break it up into its own file, and have multiple Dart files here and link them all together. Be able to import another Dart file with a widget in it. But we won't do that yet. Okay, we're on 3. Let's see if we can get 4 in here and look at 4. Okay, this introduces rows and stuff like that. So again, grab that. So run my app 4 here. So again, here where you can see a horizontal row with icon, the name, and then a button over here. So again, you can kind of look at my app 4. There's our boilerplate code. We're building a widget here, and then we're doing a return material app there, scaffold, app bar, and now we're doing for the body, we're doing a padding widget here. To give some padding around the edges here. And then inside padding is a column here. So again, that's what we had before, a column, text, size box, and then a row. This is our row here in the children. Again, just like a column had a group of children, a row has an array of children also. And we're specifying a container. That's this box here. We're doing some rounding over of the circles. We're specifying the size here. So that's our container. We're putting an icon, inside the container here, certain size. We're putting a size box here and expanding and another column here, because again, we want these two on top of each other. There, and then we have 2 text boxes inside that column. We have an elevated button. So here's our button over here for that. So this is how we lay out this one thing. And again, you should be able, we're just listing off one person here in our column. If I did this right, if I just grab this size box here and duplicated the whole size box. Let's see if I can. See if I can add another column for that. I mean, another. I did something wrong there. So yeah, you'll see you're getting this where it gets very complicated where you where we have the which parentheses are ending and stuff like that, especially when we have this big complicated long things of code. So you can see why we'll want to break this code up into subparts before too long, because I'm trying to duplicate that and it's not working well there. AI will know and be able to parse this stuff pretty well too and generate these files, this stuff relatively easily too. So we'll talk about setting up these widgets. So a lot of this programming is just declaring widgets and putting widgets in widgets. Sound good? Thursday, we'll go over the Flutter currency converter app. Again, enter some dollars, convert it to euros, or enter euros and convert to dollars. We'll do that we'll try to do it maybe in a couple different layouts here. You can tell this is just in a column layout for this. So we'll do that stuff. So we'll walk through that. Introduce variables, and this is going to have to be what is called a stateful widget because we're entering stuff. So we'll talk about stateless and stateful widgets and how those work a little bit on Thursday for this here. And then for your assignment, you'll just do a little tip calculator, enter a bill amount, and calculate a tip for this. So see how that goes. Oops, looks like, can you not see those? Oops, sorry, I'd hidden the assignments for the week from you. It looks like. There, you should be able to see those now. All right. Let me know if you have trouble getting Flutter set up on your machines and stuff like that. So, okay.